Geelong's horror post-bye record continues. Charlie Cameron has a day out and Freo's injury crisis at the MCG. This is the round so far, presented by KO and Kane Cornes. Ken Hinkley made a big statement during the week and his side backs it up tonight.
It can go either way, can't it, when you make a selection decision like that and dropping two best and fairest winners, including Westhoff, the reigning best and fairest, and Ryder, who has been their number one ruckman. But it worked. They got the response that he was after, and they were just far too tough and too strong in the contest for Geelong. And this is what we loved, didn't we? The pressure from Port Adelaide, the turnovers, the goals off turnover. And when we'll go through some of the numbers in a moment, this was the footy that wins big games and wins finals. So Port Adelaide got a long way to go, but it was a terrific start to the second half of the year.
And for the first time since last year, Geelong looked like they were susceptible to this sort of heat.
Yeah, well, plus 36 in contested possessions, Port Adelaide were. That is a complete smashing when you consider Geelong are the number one team in contested footy in the competition, plus 16 in clearances. We'll speak about Lycett in a moment, but he was instrumental in that, and 17 in ground ball gets. They took 15 marks inside 50. So I did feel like the addition of Charlie Dixon into that forward line really did straighten them up, and the structure looked a lot better with just the one ruckman, Lycett. So, no, it was a really strong performance. Loved the pressure on the ball carrier, and at times, maybe for the first or second time this year, Geelong looked really rattled.
Let's not sugarcoat it for the Cats. They're 0-8 now after buys. Since 2012, they've lost their last 8 games after the mid-season bye, and some of their big names were underperforming. In the last quarter, Mark Blitzarves went to the middle of the ground. The gun, the fullback, All-Australian, went to the middle of the ground. Joel Selwood sat on the wing, and he was one of a number of players to have a quiet night.
Yeah, it was a bit of panic, wasn't it? Blitzarves on ball. Selwood still stayed out on the wing. Why he is still playing outside when the game's on the line, I don't know. I'd be putting my best clearance player in the last 10 years into the centre bounce when the game's on the line. They kept him on the wing, put Blitzarves in there, but too little from too few. Their star players this year have had such an influence, including Tim Kelly, just 17. Tom Hawkins, 1 kick, no marks, no goals tonight, completely beaten by Tom Cleary. So, look, it's one for Geelong that you perhaps wipe, but the issue after the bye, they tried to downplay it all week. They said they addressed it early in the week and didn't speak about it. Well, now it's more than an issue. 0-8 over a long period of time would have the coach scratching his head.
One thing for the Cats, they are 7-0 the week after the bye. So maybe
Adelaide next week.
Yeah, we'll see how that unfolds on the Friday night. Now, Gary Rowan didn't take any part late in this one. It was after this big hit from Carl Amon off the footy. If this is deemed intentional, Amon's in a bit of trouble.
I don't think there's anything malicious in this at all from Carl Amon. It was, he's just sort of wrong place at the wrong time. But anything off the ball that is high that causes the player to go off concussed and not come back on, he probably spends a week on the sidelines. Unfortunately for Carl, because as I said, I don't think there was any intent there. I don't think there was an intent to hurt. It was unfortunate and probably unluckily gets a week for it.
Paddy Ryder's out of contract. He's wanting 2 years. He's unlikely to get that. Is he still at this footy club next year after he was dropped tonight and Lycett probably has the game of his season?
No, I don't think so. The club's told him it won't be a 2-year contract at Port Adelaide. So I think with the development, they got Laddams, they got Sam Hayes in the SANFL below. I think Ryder will be at another club, a Victorian-based club next year, where he will get 2 years. He's 31 years of age and his ruck work is good. But they got Lycett over for a reason, and tonight was that reason. 41 hit-outs, 11 to advantage. He had 24 possessions and 9 clearance. Now, this time last week, we sat here and said Scott Lycett got beaten by an 18-game ruckman in Darcy from Fremantle. Well, he got that response. And they were weighing up whether, is it Lycett, is it Ryder? They went with Lycett, and what a response it was. He was clearly the best player on the ground tonight.
All right, to Marvel Stadium today, and the Saints, they got blown off the park in the third quarter, conceded 50 more points to the Lions, and this Lions side looked pretty dangerous.
Yeah, they did. So this is now an issue for St Kilda, a performance like this, and in particular Alan Richardson, whose coaching future has been speculated about all year. The thing that I'm most concerned about for St Kilda is this third quarter. Now, when you look at it, Brisbane had 43 more disposals, yet were out-tackled by 16. The ground ball gets plus 14 in one quarter. So you never want to accuse a side of giving up, but there's effort and then there's serious effort. St Kilda did not give any effort, or certainly the effort required in that third quarter against a side that, it's not a world beater. Brisbane, particularly in Melbourne. So there's the numbers from the third quarter, Mitch.
And these are the numbers. And the Saints brought back Carlisle and Hanbury. Hanbury was solid. Carlisle was pretty quiet. So the Saints have no excuses. They brought back 2 guns and they said they were ready to go. This one just had a bit of a feel this third quarter that it could be the quarter that comes back to hurt Alan Richardson.
Yeah, look, and that's been the feel for it, hasn't it? And the more performances like this against sides that should be around the similar spot to St Kilda at this stage. So no excuses for the Saints today. Effort was wasn't good enough, and they were completely smashed whichever way you look at it.
All right, we've got one man that's emerging as our Saturday star of the season, Charlie Cameron. I reckon it's his third or fourth nomination for the year. He was absolutely unstoppable today in front of goals.
He was. He was just on fire. 3 goals in the first quarter. And, you know, if you're a player, he's the one that frightens you, I think, one of the most in the competition. You know, the likes of De Goey when they take you deep in the goal square, and Dustin Martin, well, he's in that calibre where if he's one out inside 50 like he was for stages during this game, you just can't stop him. Now, the way that he kicked his goals, he can do it in the air, but this one here is one of the best goals I've seen all year. Have a look at the St Kilda players who have a hand on him right now. There's 3 of them around. He's good enough to win the hardball, get to his feet and finish for his 5th goal there. So what a recruit he's been. At the time, I think it was pick 12, and everyone was saying Adelaide won that trade deal. No.
That's when the Lions needed players.
Brisbane completely won that trade deal with Michael Walters, the best small forward in the game right now.
Okay, over to the MCG, the Demons. A lot of pressure leading into this one, and Tom McDonald and Jack Viney were 2 of the players that stood up late in this game to overrun a pretty unlucky Dockers because they had so many injuries.
They did. They had some challenges today, the Dockers. But this was the effort we saw from Melbourne all of last year. I mean, they were so good around the contest, contested footy clearances. This was probably their best piece of play. We haven't seen much of this all year for Melbourne. How's the methodical build-up here, and then the mark over the back to Harms in the goal square goes back and kicks it? But 13 marks inside 50 today for the Demons. We haven't been saying that much at all this year. The breakdown from the midfield to the forward line has been an issue. And this man was on fire today. McDonald, he's been quiet all year. It's been much spoken about. But 28 disposals. Felt like he played higher up the ground and was involved right from the start, and then was able to take some big marks and go back and finish, and he was the best player for Melbourne today.
Some interesting comments pre-game from the Chief Executive, Gary Purd, on SEN with you, saying that they want another key forward at the end of the year. That's where they need to target that area.
Surprising, wasn't it? And, you know, ask them what are their needs, considering they have topped up and got experienced players in the last couple of years. Well, they just traded out Jesse Hogan, who's a 60-goal forward and potentially could be anything. And now they're saying, well, we need a key forward. So I'm not sure what their vision has been. Perhaps they got their list wrong. But what I did love about Melbourne was that intensity, that ferocity was back that we saw from the Demons last year. The
Dockers were pretty unlucky. Jesse Hogan, the man you speak of, came off in the first quarter with a foot injury. They reckon it's not the navicular, but it has to be related. It is the same foot. Shaping
up is a big story, isn't it? That was the first incident there where he just tweaked it. Now, this is the concerning one where he landed it straight away. He knew. You could tell in his body language something was up. Look, he tried to stay on the ground and run around for a while, but he was no good, came off and didn't feature after quarter time. So this could be a big story.
And Stephen Hill is the other player. Free agent this year, had quad troubles all through pre-season. He goes off with a left hamstring. That's got the hallmarks of a big story as well, because he's wanting another contract and a big extension of that footy club.
Yeah, 29 years of age. And the way that he plays with that explosiveness that he's built his game around, soft tissue injuries will keep continuing to happen, unfortunately, at his age and with his history.
Big passage of play late in the third quarter of this one. Michael Walters headbutts Jay Lockhart. He's on report for this one, but from what the vision we can see, it doesn't look like there's a great deal in it from this angle.
Yeah, it probably gets thrown out, that one. But what I'm interested in is the umpire's decision to pay a free kick against Nate Jones that we're going to see in a moment. So you'll see Jones at the top of the screen. He'll come in to remonstrate. It was a free kick, actually, to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Would have been from the top of the goal square, because that free kick against Walters happened at the top of the goal square. This there, the umpire cannot be paying free kicks for that, because what that does, it encourages other players to do it. We'll get another look at this. You can see Walters essentially lowering his body before contact is even made, lowers his body to make sure the contact gets him high. The umpire is right there.
Jones has got to be smarter than that.
Yeah, it was silly from Jones, but if you're going to reward players for what I think is a blatant exaggeration of contact, that shouldn't be rewarded in our game. That's a massive piece of play. Turnover, so essentially 2 goals. They went down the other end and kicked a goal from that Fremantle. Could have been the difference in the game. Yes, Jones has got to show better leadership, but as does the umpire. You can't be rewarding players for actions like that, which most would call diving.
Lucky that didn't cost him the game, Nathan Jones. Now, Kane, it was a big day in the West today. Nic Naitanui back for his first game in the Waffle after his second reconstruction. And Mel, plenty of love on social media for the big man.
Yes, Nic Nat did indeed make his return through the Waffle today. And he was instrumental in the Eagles' big win, and they were pretty happy about it post-game. That boys. It's a good sight to see Nic Nat back in the middle of all of that. You'll notice Drew Petrie was in the middle of the circle too. The first time he and Nic Naitanui have ever played together. Now, Nic Nat's stats are pretty impressive. He had 64 minutes of game time, 25 hitouts, 10 touches and 4 tackles, boys. So he ticked all the boxes he needed to tick, and it looks like he'll line up for the Eagles against the Hawks next weekend. Kane, what sort of impact can we see him having on the game?
I think you're right. I think he'll come back. I'd like to see him have one more, though.
Yep.
Now, there's 60-odd minutes in the waffle.
Yeah.
Is that enough to get him back with the history he's had? Now, there's no rush for the Eagles. I think they're in a terrific spot. They're going to start favourites regardless against Hawthorn next week. Why not get him a bit more game time, a bit more contact, twisting and turning, and some more minutes at that level before you bring him back in? So I hope they go the conservative route with him.
The only thing is, there's Hickey and Vardy aren't setting the world on fire.
But Hickey's doing his job. Like he did his job against Bell Chambers, a good opponent on Thursday night, and he's holding his own. So I don't think there's a rush to getting back in.
Now, Mel, the injury news wasn't as good across town for Harley Bennell.
Yeah, that's right. Harley Bennell limped off during the first quarter of a waffle match today. He suffered what the club is calling a right lower leg injury. Suspicions that it's a re-injury of that calf he's done before. So he'll have scans in the coming days, but not a good sign at all. He'd strung together a few really impressive matches in the waffle. So I guess we just see what happens with this one here, but certainly not good early signs for Harley Bennell. Now, boys, before I let you go, this weekend, my favourite feud in footy was reignited on Twitter. Kane, I'm looking right at you. Now, to put this into context, on Friday there was a fire in the SEN building. Everyone's okay, it was fine, but Kane pointed out, as a past fireman, I'm really concerned about this. And Tex Walker, well, he couldn't help himself, he chimed in, you weren't there long enough to be a past fireman. Kane, I love this. Can you just note, no response from Kane to Tex either. So I pencil that in as 1-0 to Tex here. What happened?
I'm not sure about that. Tex is not known for his intellect, so probably just didn't get the joke and probably went straight over the big fella's head. Hopefully, he plays well next week.
Hope you got something big planned for the next time he does something.
Oh, we'll see. He's usually only on Twitter when he's feeling good about himself. He's pretty happy with his 3-goal performance against the second-string Richmond defence, so we'll see how he responds at Geelong next week.
All right, I hope he's watching. Now, back to Friday night, Kane. Buddy Franklin kicked 4 goals in the first half. He was dominating for the Swans. He went off at one stage during the third quarter. He was off for the next 8 minutes. The long run of play, he was unable to get back on the ground. He goes back on eventually. Dan Menzel comes off the ground. In this next passage of play, Buddy Franklin hurts his left hamstring. For the second time this year, the left hamstring goes. It's becoming a bit of a talking point as to whether that time on the bench sort of hurt him. This is what his coach, John Longmire, had to say. Of course, Buddy Franklin on 299 games now, so he's going to have to wait 3 or 4 more weeks. The Swans are saying that it's a 3 or 4 week injury, so we're looking at around 17 or 18 as to when he comes back. This is his coach, John Longmire, speaking about the possibility of that 8-minute stint on the bench being the cause of that recurrence of the hamstring.
You can't get a runner out there, and so even if we wanted him on, I mean, believe me, we want him on. But when there's a long time in play before a goal's kicked, you can't actually get him off now. Players are watching it, young players are watching it. Maybe we could have looked over our shoulder and got off, and we're trying to call out from the bench, but you can't actually do anything. And so I don't know whether that contributed or not, and no one will ever know.
It's not ideal timing to have a star player off for 8 minutes. He goes back on, gets cold on the bench, and goes and pings his hammy the next play.
Yeah, I think John Longmire summed it up pretty well. We will never know. But what I will say is, from the vision that I saw and not being at the ground, I didn't see him doing any warm-up exercises. Yeah. Usually, if you're on the bench for 2 or 3 minutes, that's fine. Sit down, come back on, you're still warm. But 8 minutes, cold night, Friday night footy, I would have liked to have seen him jogging up and down the boundary line, keeping himself warm, doing some stretching. Now, would that have made a difference? I don't know, but I thought it was strange that Buddy was standing there, stationary, for 8 minutes and not warming up. 75 games left on his contract. Does he see it out? Yeah, look, I think when he signed it, we probably all thought the last year might be a write-off, but I still think he's got 2 good years of footy left in him. It's not like we're talking about a Jordan Lewis or a Jared Ruffhead or one of those players who are getting to the end and out of form. Yeah. He might be coming to the end, but he's still in ripping form. 23 goals from 9 games, 4 goals on Friday night. So he's still up there with the best forwards in the game. Now, shaping is a massive off-season for his former side, Hawthorn. Alistair Clarkson has 3 years to run on his contract at the Hawks. This is the last sort of little period they've gone to with the draft. They've neglected the first round of the draft. They do have a first-round pick right now,
What avenue are they going down? Are they going out and getting a Canelio and targeting a Patton, or should they go to the draft and rebuild while Clarko's still there?
Yeah, well, this is their first picks for the last 6 or so years. I'm concerned about Hawthorn because of this, because of the lack of players coming through. And even Ryan Burton was their first pick 19 in 2015. He's not there anymore. Daniel Howe, is he going to make it? Hartung's not there anymore as well. Warple's the one there that you think massive tick for him, particularly at pick 45. I think premiership sides are built mostly from the draft.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to do so. Is Clarko the man to go back and go to the draft and target that? I don't think he is, so I don't think he will. If it was me, though, I'd try and get as many picks as I can and basically start to injecting some youth and some talent into this side, because they're the oldest list coming into this year. They've got some decisions to make on some older players, and the lack of youth coming through is a massive concern for me.
St Kilda, Gold Coast and Hawthorn, the only 3 teams not to score 100 points this year. What are we thinking about their forward line? Is Patton the answer? Do they go and get him? Because Sicily had to start forward on the weekend. Roughhead won't be there next year.
Yeah, well, they need someone. They had a good crack at Tom Lynch from all reports last year. Didn't get him. He went to Richmond, clearly. Sicily's been tried there. He's not the one. Roughhead, we know, will move on. Patton, for me, no, not the one, just because I want someone that I can rely on with their body, and I just think his attributes to the game has probably moved to a more athletic type of forward. So he's not the one for me, but clearly they've got to go after something. All
right, back to Thursday night. The Eagles have a decision on Jeremy McGovern. He's been offered 1 week for this shove on Matt Guelphy. What do we think of this? It's been deemed rough conduct, medium impact. He was left concussed, Matt Guelphy. Do we think McGovern goes and try and challenges this one?
Yeah, I think he's unlucky. You'll see the ribs, I think it is into that plastic chair that the security guard's sitting there. If that security guard is not there, he gets off. So unfortunate that right at that time the security guard is sitting there. I think a fine is the appropriate punishment for that offence, and I'd love to see the Eagles challenge that. I think he's been harshly done by.
Bombers now 5-8 on the season. These are the sides they've beaten this year. It's not the greatest... they've won 6 games, rather. These are the 6 teams they've beaten this year, the Bombers. It's not pretty viewing.
No, it's not a great list of teams up the top of the ladder, is it? My question mark over Essendon is, can they win a different way? Yes, we know they're terrific on Marvel Stadium, indoors, and they can play fast. They get the run-off half-back and score heavily. But if a side comes to shut down your half-backs like they did on Thursday night, and Sard had no influence whatsoever, he was well beaten, so can they win a different way? If it's a stoppage game, if there's numbers around the footy, if it's contested, if there's numbers through the middle of the ground to stifle that ball movement, I haven't seen it yet. So I think they're one of the great teasers in the competition and have been for a couple of years.
Big game for them this week on Thursday night against the Giants. You can watch all of that on KO. KO lets you instantly stream over 50 sports, including every match of every round of the Toyota AFL Premiership season. You can stream Sunday's match between the Dogs and the Pies, or you can watch the best matches from this round, even if you miss them, with all this week's matches on demand. Plus, you can enjoy all the action from the Cricket World Cup live, ad break free during play. And the French Grand Prix is on at the moment. You can search KO Sports to your 14-day free trial now. To that match tomorrow, the Pies and the Dogs. Interesting decision by Nathan Buckley, Kane, to replace Jaden Stevenson with Ben Reid, making them with 3 key tools in attack.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it'll stretch the Western Bulldogs' defence, not known for their height down there. Trengove is in good form for the Dogs, but that will test him. And I like the fact that he's experimenting and trying some things in the lead up to the finals, which they will be a part of.
Now, to one more thing. We've been keeping a close eye on the manning of the mark during this season. We've had Reece Matheson with the shotgun a few weeks ago. This was a novel idea from Dane Zorko on the mark today.
This is as good as I've seen from Dane Zorko. Look, he's just mirroring it and having a set shot himself. Now, I wonder if the AFL will come out and have a look at this, because I know you can't throw grass at a player having a kick, but look at him. He almost tries to kick some grass up at him. So I'm not sure whether that will be allowed, but it's allowed today, and it put him off, and it was one of the best examples of putting someone off I've seen this year.
Almost as good as the shotgun or the Xavier Dunsby arrow.
After a goal. Yeah.
Okay.
No arrows from Michael Walters today, though, I noticed.
Okay.
No rubbing.
They couldn't get it done.
No rubbing of the head from Nat Fyfe.
All right, then maybe it got to you. Maybe that word you had to them last week got through.
Maybe.
Thanks, Kane.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel Horsey. We'll see you same time, same place here on the Round So Far next week.